I'm Councillor Adele Morris and I represent Borough and Bankside Ward, which is where this development is situated.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I know I don't need to explain the routine to you, but when you're ready, I will give you 3 minutes to make your presentation, and give you a moment. My clock is ready and you may begin your presentation now.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm amazed actually that any residents ever turn up to planning committee about applications in our ward, because by the time they come to committee it's too late really to get anything changed, and they haven't been listened to for years. Blackfriars Road SPD is the classic example. It wasn't supported by residents, of which there are thousands living in low-rise social housing just set back off Blackfriars Road, and the reference to the tower at St George's Circus always makes me laugh, because that was stuck in by the developers because that's what they wanted to put there. Nobody else wanted it there, and the officers said yes. So that's the bit about the Blackfriars Road SPD, which, by the way, this does still breach. This isn't a slender tower. It is, the Blackfriars Road SPD says up to 70 metres. It doesn't have to be 70 metres plus, and this is actually denser than you would normally expect from a tower, from something that height. I've heard a couple of times the financial mentions. Cllr, it was mentioned that it is and I'd like to get this be corrected if necessary, that Cllr payment and the amount of money we're getting is a material consideration, because I didn't believe that that was a material planning consideration. And then the other thing about this is delivering social housing. Well, we've collected so much money in lieu from developments in our ward, and if we didn't have enough money from that to deliver some social housing on this site, then we've done something very, very wrong. So this is a separate application. The part that is shared is the part about the land swaps, but this site is not.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, I think we lost Councillor Soanes for a time. Can we just establish how much she missed?
Oh no, I was in full flow as well.
Sorry.
Oh, well, if I can pause my clock. Councillor Soanes. She's. Oh, I see.
Oh, I've just. Hello. Yeah, I fell out of the meeting.
With us now.
So, yeah. I'm just trying to. Righto, I'm on a different device. So I don't know. I may. Yeah. I've had to switch devices. Apologies for that. Okay. Yeah.
How long were you away for there? How long were you away for?
I missed. I literally fell out of the meeting as Adele introduced herself. So I've missed the whole of Adele's presentation. So it would be.
All right.
It would be good to just get a summary at the end or something if she doesn't want to start again.
Well, I won't have her start again. What I think I will do, and I'll take guidance, of course, that I'll let Councillor Demos complete her presentation, and indeed, I'll ask a supplementary if she would simply summarise her presentation for Councillor Soanes. I trust
that'll be fine in the Q&A. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Soanes, forgive me, Councillor Demos, you have just under a minute remaining.
Okay, so
we begin.
So the Styles House development, when that came to planning, it was made very, very clear that the two, whilst they do have a common land swap, are not linked developments, and indeed we should be able to deliver council housing on the Styles House site with the money that we have already collected. I'm going to turn to a couple of practical things. Please, can we have no A4 in this one? We have a saturation policy in Borough and Bankside, which has been in existence for a long time. A licensing saturation policy. Isabella Street is already causes nightmares for the local residents. So please, no A4. Happy to come back in more detail on that one. And then the shared space, there was a mention that it won't be used by office workers at weekends. I'd like to question that because these days office workers are in all the time. Even TfL workers are in on the weekends and in evenings. That's probably my time, isn't it?
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morris. And Thank you for that presentation. And if I may also then suggest, just for the benefit of Councillor Soanes, can I ask you just to summarise the first minutes of your presentation?
Yeah, so Cleo, I was complaining about the Blackfriars SPD being used as a document to reference because nobody locally supported it anyway. And then the other thing was I questioned, there was a comment that the CIL is a material consideration, or the amount of money in CIL, not the CIL specifically for the social housing, but the amount of money in CIL was a material consideration, and I questioned whether that was the case. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Adele. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. I've got it.
Are there other questions to Councillor Adele Morris? Are there questions? So I can see 3 hands. If I take it in this order, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Whitehead, Councillor Merrill. Okay, Councillor O'Brien first of all.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps
you're mute.
No, I've come off mute. Can you hear me now? I'm off mute.
I can hear you.
Oh, it's your internet connection. Yep, we can now. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, there might have been a delay. What is your specific concern about this application? Is it the massing of the building, or is it the application as a whole?
No, the Blackfriars Road is developing, my ward is developing, growth happens, and growth has to happen. One of the biggest problems in the ward actually is that it's not coordinated in the same way as Canada Water has got a master plan, the Old Kent Road's got a master plan, the Aylesbury's got an action plan. It's been very much sort of piecemeal. And the Blackfriars Road SPD was an attempt to bring that together, but even that has been done in a piecemeal way. So there isn't a problem with development over the station, but that is, I think that there is a feeling that it is out of context. It is too tall and too chunky and too wide. It's not a slender tower that will be almost invisible. It is a very prominent site, and the feeling is that it could have been lower and it could have been slimmer.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bryan, for your question, and Councillor White for your response. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I think actually my question was asked by Councillor O'Brien. I may have a technical question to ask of officers about the SPD, but maybe we can.
Thank you. Yeah, hang on to that question in that case. Councillor Merrill, I should say, really, but anyway.
That's all right, Chair. Councillor Morris, you indicated you wanted to say more about A4 use in the area and go into a bit more detail. I just was going to give you the opportunity if you wanted to.
That's very kind of you, Councillor Merrill. We have got a lot of issues with antisocial behaviour from licensed premises. We have, I think, 17% of the borough's licensed premises. I did a very quick recce just before the meeting started. 17% of all the licensed premises in the borough are in our ward, which is why we have this cumulative impact zone. Isabella Street, the noise team have endless reports from the residents in Styles House about the problems and the antisocial behaviour that is associated just with the Isabella Street development. And so the idea of having any more pure bars, well, they would struggle to get a licence because the presumption in licensing, because we've got the community impact area, the presumption is against granting new licences. So it's really a kind of a heads up for the developers that, restaurants, shops, hairdressers, very useful shops. Actually, that is the thing that residents cry out for more than anything. Please, not even any more cafes or restaurants, but a shop where we can, get our nails painted, our hair done, a chemist, whatever. But yeah, in terms of the saturation, we do already have a problem with alcohol licenses and licensed premises in the area. Thank you, Councillor Merrill, for asking that.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there further questions to Councillor Morris? In that case, then, Councillor Morris, I'm going to thank you very much for your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Chair, sorry, yes.
Oh, okay, there you are. Yes, Councillor Soanes, of course.
My colour tone hand, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right, I'm sorry, I'm on this different device. It all looks a bit different. But anyway, Adele, I raised a question with the applicants around the justification of an office, in the main, an office commercial building. And especially in light of the objector's objector, and also I raised it in response because, ironically, they said that they were unable to. They were restricted with achieving a carbon neutrality because of the number of floors that are proposed. What is your view? And they think that they will be able to fill and occupy the building. What is your view of a building of that size in that location? They think that it will be really attractive. They think the quality and the standard of building will achieve and will attract potential tenants. What's your view, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Soanes. So I think there's kind of two parts to that. One is obviously we don't really know what the office market is going to look like post-COVID. I think there are going to be a lot more people who don't come into work in offices anymore, but I'm not qualified enough to comment on whether or not it is lettable, because the jury is out on that. Although, to be fair to the applicants, I suspect that the office accommodation that's going to be harder to get people back into is the poorer quality of office accommodation rather than the new office accommodation. I think, alongside with the height is this issue about, can you make it carbon neutral? And, you and I have sat on these planning committees for years and heard people talk about taller buildings or glass buildings or whatever, and why you can't make them carbon neutral. So it does beg the question, so why aren't we, given we have declared a climate emergency, and we have an international climate emergency, a world climate emergency, why are we still allowing this height and scale of buildings to be built if indeed they can't sort of cover their carbon footprints, as it were? So yeah, on that basis, I think it's too late for this application. Obviously, you've got to, as the chair will always say at the end of these meetings, what we have before us is what we have before us, and we're not deciding on another scheme, we're deciding on what's here. But I personally wouldn't have thought that this was what we needed in this location right now.
All righty. In that case, Councillor Soames, thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Soames, and thank you, Councillor Morris, for responding to the committee's question. Thank you very much, and good evening to you. I'll now move on to some general comments of additional observations colleagues wish to make. But before we begin that, Councillor Soames, if possible, can you, on your name, just put CLLR, then you'll appear on my list of councillors, easier to them to see if you put your digital ad.
Yes, certainly. I'm going to try and actually revert back to my original device, but certainly I can.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Appreciate that. Okay, that's fine. First of all, any further comments? Councillor Whitehead, you had a technical question, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I probably should have written it down.
I can always return to you. Don't worry. You will get yourself together. Councillor Merrill, in that case.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You might appreciate this question after sitting watching a meeting where legal beavers argue for about an hour and a half over one word in a policy. Could you just go through, could I just get clarification in the SPT? Does it say up to 70 metres, and does that mean up to dead, or is it a guidance, as we're being indicated today?
I believe that's what he said, but I'm going to, who would wish to respond to that? I think John or Terence, first of all. Terence? Oh?
Yeah, sorry, if I'm just checking the.
Yeah, okay.
And yes, it says approximate.
Approximate, right. There you are, Councillor Merrill. It says approximate, Councillor Merrill.
Clarifies.
Very good. Thank you.
Chair,
you.
I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at something that says different, and I'm looking at it on the website. Sorry,
okay.
Chair, it's very rude of me, I know.
Yes, but if you could refer to the document you're referring to, as it's you, you're responding to our question, so it's okay. Can you refer to document? What document are you referring to?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at a diagram. If you give me a minute or two, I can check the SPD for the example.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Chair, Yvonne Lewis here. I think Adele as Councillor Morris is right. I think it says up to 70 metres.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
But of course,
I'm looking at page 25, SPD 5 building heights.
Yeah, I think Yvonne Lewis is concurring with you, Councillor Morris. It's up to. It says up to, as opposed to being approximate. Right.
In that case, can I check with John or Simon whether that up to means guidance or is a deadline? Just so we're clear.
Okay. Well, yeah, all clear. Well, Yvonne might respond anyway, but
yeah, I mean, I think an SPD is that it is a policy. It's guidance to support the policy. It suggests an expectation, but of course, as we often tell you, a committee, you determine the application before you, just based on all of its attributes and the various levels of policy that it responds to in terms of use, design, and you must take a view on that. So there is nothing in the guidance that says you cannot make a decision for a height that exceeds that if you think that's the appropriate decision based on all of the elements of the scheme. I don't know if John wants to add something to that.
Well, just to add to that, the SPD is guidance, and in accordance with the Town and Country Planning Act. It's the development plan that you've got to look at primarily. And the development plan is, of course, our core strategy and the newly adopted London plan from early February. Early March. But the SPD, which has been around for some time now, is very much guidance and therefore a material consideration. But it hasn't got clearly, it mustn't be looked at in the same way as development plan policy. So as a material consideration, you'll take it into consideration the fact and weigh it against the benefits of the scheme, such as being put forward to you, and on the other hand, the harm that the scheme brings forward. But the fact remains that the SPD does give you something which is up to rather than approximate. So that itself is a factor which you need to take into consideration.
Thank you, John. And Councillor Merrill, thank you for that observation. The scheme is the scheme at the moment. I'll go to Councillor Whitehead, and I'll have a question after Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Whitehead.
So the question I was going to ask actually was precisely what John Gorse was just referring to, which is what does the development plan actually say in relation to the heights of buildings on this site?
Okay. I think he's responded to that question.
I don't believe he has confirmed what the development plan says.
You wanted to quote it verbatim, right? Okay.
So well, I think it's quite important if we're saying.
I understand. John, if you have it handy, of course.
Well, I haven't got it handy. I'll look it up. But
I have.
One moment, Councillor Bryan.
Probably comment more ably than I have. But the development plan is obviously some way out of date now. But the concentration there is very much at either end of the Blackfriars Road. So where one Blackfriars is and Blackfriars Circus. and the SPD built on that. And I think that's what Michael was trying to show earlier with his plan that's included in the report. The way that there was the potential for almost a wave effect from one end of Blackfriars Road to the other, but a wave effect rising in the centre. But I think if Michael's still around, he can probably explain that in far better than I was.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
I won't be quoting the exact passage in the core strategy, I'm afraid. I'm hurriedly trying to find it, but briefly, the core strategy sets the sort of overarching strategy for the borough and identifies areas and locations suitable for tall buildings. And in fact, it talks about the Blackfriars Road and the northern end of Blackfriars Road as being a place suitable for tall buildings. That is manifested itself in the tall buildings cluster, which has occurred in the northern end of Blackfriars Road. The SPD takes from that and gives a finer grain and a more detailed sort of analysis of the area and where height is more appropriate or less appropriate. And that vision that I presented to you, that is in the case officer's report today, is in the background paper, the tall buildings study for the Blackfriars Road SPD. As Miss Lewis said, that is a guidance in the SPD. The SPD is not intended to set policy, but it is intended to sort of explain or clarify policy. And in this instance, it clarified that the highest cluster, the tallest buildings, should be at the northern end of Blackfriars Road, and that the southern half of the Blackfriars Road should be have these two bookends, local landmarks, and a continuous height, a shoulder height of 30 meters, up to 30 meters. So that's the context of the SPD and the core strategy.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Whitehead, does that help? Well, I can't see you now, but wherever he is.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is that there's no specific heights attributed to Blackfriars Road in the core in the Southwark plan.
I think that's a fair observation. Yes, I've seen nods all round. Yep, I've seen nods all round. That's correct, Councillor Whitehead.
Chair, I would just add, just to state the obvious, we do have a tall buildings policy, though. So, so any tall building should be assessed against the tall buildings policy, the saved tall buildings policy in the Southwark plan, and which is not that different from the emerging tall buildings policy in the new Southwark plan, and that is the development plan policy to apply.
Thank you, Simon, for that intervention. In that case, my only contribution to this part of the debate, and in view of the comments made in relation to height, I note that the applicant, in respect of my question, indeed questions around the response to climate change and carbon offset contribution of just over £500,000, and the ability of this building to a sort of 100% rating. A means to achieve that would be to source energy from a sustainable source. Now, if that is the case, and we're able to achieve 100%, is that a condition that this committee could apply? I wonder if the planning or legal officers wish to respond to my observation. The applicant has made clear that it could achieve 100%, but only if energy for this building was obtained from a sustainable source. And if that is achievable by securing energy sources which are sustainable, that seems to be in the long term favourable, and most certainly would affect my view on this application. But I just want to be sure, from a condition point of view, is that a reasonable condition?
I think the point. Sorry, I think the point that the developer was making was that you can source your power from sustainable sources. So that maybe electricity providers provide their power from wind farms and so on. But I think it also takes into account the decarbonisation of the grid. I don't think it is the sort of thing that would be a reasonable condition, because I think we have to look back at, you know, the policy in the London Plan at 9.2.4 makes it clear that to be policy compliant on a commercial development, at least 35% carbon reduction has to take place on site, and the remainder can be through a financial payment. So in this situation, the developer is providing 42% on site with the current technologies, and a payment to make up the other 48%.
I've heard all that, and I accept that, and it's exceeding the minimum requirement. But of course, we're thinking of the long term. This building will be up for at least 50 years or more. And if I just want to, from a planning legal point of view, is it if the applicant is willing to enter into such an agreement, is it in a reasonable agreement to include in the S106 agreement that energy sources for this building will be from a sustainable source?
Chair, if I could just give a view on that. I think to extend what Terence was just saying, I think that the energy policies that we apply are as set out in the London Plan. So with the carbon offset payment, this meets the policy of the London Plan. I think the suggestion that you're making, Chair, you're effectively creating a new policy and then just an observation on that is, if we applied it to this case, then it would follow that we would apply it to every case. There would probably be
fantastic?
Issues. Well,
would that be fantastic?
The thing is, Chair, we are, as you know, going through the final stages of adopting the new Southwark plan with the examination in public, and we are committed to an early review of the energy policies in the light of the climate emergency strategy, which is going to Cabinet in June. And I would suggest that if we are going to develop new policies, that and appreciating how urgent you may feel that is, I think the fact that it is in the very next cycle of council decision making from June, then I think that is recognising the urgency of it. So any further development of policy could be considered at that stage.
All righty, but I had to try, and I know there'll be many listening to this who would be most certainly in favour where an applicant is willing to enter into such an agreement, and so therefore I'm not creating policy where an applicant is willing to enter such agreement, and I may want to double check with the applicant if that is so. Is it reasonable to include it in our S106 agreement, which is a side agreement, of course? That's why I asked the question. Is it reasonable if the applicant agrees?
Well, just to pick up on that, Chair, I mean, if the applicant agrees, it's a contract between the applicant and the council, and the parties can freely negotiate the terms. It could be subsequently argued that it wasn't actually a Regulation 122 compliant, but if they have agreed it in a freely negotiated contract, that would be a pretty difficult argument for them to put. So yes, you may well want to put the question to the applicant, and I'll make a careful note if they say, yeah, we don't mind.
Thank you. If I may go back to the applicant, where is he? I can't see the face. Oh, there you are, Andrew. I really noted your observation, which I know will be there's many who are listening to this debate who would welcome. But did I misquote you first of all? And if I didn't, would you be willing to include this particular clause in the S106 agreement?
I can see the intentions, Councillor, and I think they're very honourable. In this instance, given we are meeting policy and we are compliant with it, it's not something I think we would want to agree with right now. So,
all right, okay.
I can see the intentions.
Thank you. It's okay, but I still applaud the building at having the levels of energy efficiencies which others should most certainly seek to aspire to.
I see that, and that's a commitment from TfL to TfL itself and the way in which it wants to operate and run the building.
Yes.
Whether we want to sign up to a legal agreement.
It's maybe we should have asked the mayor, should we? But never mind. It's another place, another time. Thank you for that response. Thank you very much. Thank you. In that case, then I'll move on to Councillor Merrill. Where are you? I can't see you.
Yes.
Yep. Go ahead. Yep, go
yeah.
ahead.
Sorry, Chair. I was going to hopefully help and comment on what you were saying then, and accidentally left my hand up. So I'll just leave it at that.
Right. Fair enough. That it was an interesting venture, wasn't it? And maybe we've all got to think about this particular question. Planning should make a significant contribution to our efforts to reduce the impact we have on climate change. We should, and it's a subject for another discussion with a certain councillor's issue. But anyway, are there further debating issues you want to raise? And are you content? I don't believe there have been further amendments other than what's in the addendum for me to proceed to a motion. Are you?
Yes, sorry, Chair. Just want to go back to Councillor Morris and the A4 use and just get a bit of advice on whether we could put in a condition that A4 use is not allowed on this particular site and whether the applicant would be happy with that.
I think we need to put that to the applicant first of all before we take advice. Yes.
I believe there is a note in the officer's report in relation to conditioning A4 use. I've lost the paragraph.
Or Terence could confirm.
In respect of the ground floor units, and yes, I think that's part of, yeah.
I had put a restrictive condition.
So I think it's already been dealt with within the officer's report.
I think what Councillor Morris, and I'm sure she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Councillor Morris was getting at was that she wanted A4 removed completely.
That's correct, Terence. Just the other A class is not A4.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So it is in the conditions, and Councillor Morris, so you're content.
Chair, I think Terence was suggesting that there is something in the conditions that restricts it, but I haven't. Apologies, I haven't got the conditions in front of me. Is he saying that there are going to be no A4 units? Because I'm not sure that that's what Terence said, because he didn't describe quite what is in the conditions.
Yeah, if I could clarify, I have put a condition on restricting the amount of floor space that can be used for A4 purposes. What Councillor Morris suggests is that we remove A4 completely.
I've got to say that I'm not at this stage inclined, but I'm going to return to you, Councillor Morris, in a second. Let me take Councillor Whitehead to put his digital hands down. Right. Okay. Or not. Did you want to say anything? Councillor Whitehead?
No, I was actually looking to follow up on that same issue.
Oh, right. Okay. It is unfortunate we hadn't had the opportunity of prior warning of this suggestion. And as you know, I always react to lack of warning. it is a significant change, and I think it's the restriction on the quantum is what's in the report. To remove it, and I'll take guidance from legal and others, would require, I think, the other officers and/or the applicant to agree, first of all, in principle. First of all, Terence, do you have an initial response to the idea of removing and putting an embargo on the A4?
In planning terms, if we were to removing the A4 use wouldn't raise any planning issues. It wouldn't contravene any policies. It's more an issue for the applicant because it changes the context of their application in terms of the range of uses that they would have permission for. But in planning terms, if the applicant agreed to removing A4, it wouldn't raise any planning issues.
If I can therefore return to you. Councillor Merrill, yes.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Before we go down this line and just could Terence just read out the condition rather than us all scrabbling to look for it just to see if it's satisfactory as it is anyway?
Terence?
I can, if you. I'll need to. Yeah.
On page 115 of the agenda, Chair.
Please. Not too many, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Can I ask others to mute their mics, please? Those who are in the background. Terence, 115.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm having difficulty scrolling through the document.
I wonder if anyone else has got it handy.
If you've got a paper agenda, it's on page 115.
It does suggest that the policy just says that no more than 50% of the floor space shall be used for A4 purposes. So no more than 50% of the retail floor space shall be used for A4 purposes.
Right.
Yeah, I've got it up on the screen. That's what it says.
Yep. Okay. Again, I did want to make sure, as there's no prior warning on this. I'm not proposing a resolution go forward, but it really depends upon the applicant's response. Andrew, do you have a response to the suggestion?
Well, I think we were happy with what the officer what Terence put in the report there.
Okay.
Clearly, providing an occupier with the option to have it is clearly more favourable to us. So we would prefer if we stayed with what the officer has recommended.
Right. Okay. All righty. Okay. So thank you, Andrew. So as I said, this is why briefings are so important. Allows us to plan ahead. We received a suggestion from the ward councillor. It is a change to what's in the report. Okay. And I believe under these circumstances, it would be first of all for the committee to take a view, and I wonder first of all, is there a member of the committee likely to propose this change first of all? Okay, Councillor O'Brien.
Quick question: if we take the A4 use out of it, can the applicant reapply at a later date for a change of use, or does the section 106 have primacy over that?
Good question. I think I know the answer, but if I can ask either Terence or John to respond, please.
There would be nothing to prevent the developer once the development is completed, or actually during the course of construction, the developer could apply to incorporate A4 use. I mean, we would obviously have to take a view if we specifically excluded it at committee. It is unlikely that a future application would be successful, but there would be nothing to prevent the developer from submitting a future application for that change of use.
Yeah, that's correct. And the section 106 wouldn't govern uses of the site. It wouldn't extend that far, so we couldn't rely on that.
Okay. In that case, thank you, officers, for that response. In that case, I'm not proposing that we take this particular matter further, as we're not able to enforce it. I think that's really the point. for Councillor O'Brien's question. In that case, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on in that case. And I'm going to ask, are there further comments you wish to make? Otherwise, I'd like to move to a motion, and then I need to address the issue of Councillor Williams in a moment. Are we content that I go to a motion? Okay, in that case, and this is I'd like to move that we adopt the officer's recommendations set out in pages 1 to 2 of the report and pages 17 of the main agenda pack. That planning permission be granted subject to condition. The applicant enter into an appropriate legal agreement and the referral to the Mayor of London. In the event that the requirement of paragraph 1 above are not met, by the 30th of September 2021, the Director of Planning be authorised to refuse planning permission, if appropriate, for the reasons set out in paragraph 235. Okay, so that's the resolution. Is there a member of the committee wish to second that resolution?
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Merrill on this occasion. I heard him first. In that case, then I'll now move to the vote. I will now call on the voting members of the committee by name and ask them to confirm whether they are in favour, against, or abstain the motion. So I'll begin with Councillor Darren Merrill. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
I'm for it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Livingstone, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor David O'Brien, for, against, or abstain the motion?
Against, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleo Soanes, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dan Whitehead, for, against, or abstain the motion?
Against, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kath Williams, Whittam, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bill Williams, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. And I'm Councillor Martin Seaton, and I'm for the motion. The motion is carried. Thank you. All righty. It is 9:17, and I just need to take some advice. So at this point, unfortunately, we lose Councillor Whitehead, and thank you for your contribution, Councillor Whitehead. Can I also check with Councillor Williams? I've seen your note. Can you just confirm if you are able to stay for the next item?
I am able to stay for the next item, Chair. My partner will be staying at the hospital tonight.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. As long as you're sure, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. In that case, then what I'll propose is, it's now 20 past, or they're about 20 past 9. I propose that we take a further 5-minute break at this point, and we reconvene at 21:23.